We don't have agendas.
All right, it is 6:32, June 10th, 2024. We will call the city mayor, city council meeting to order. If we could start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And with that, do we have any additions to the agenda tonight?
Yes, Mayor, under normal business items, I'd like to slide it as the first, so just before 11 under business items, adding the consider approval of the proclamation declaring June 23rd as International Widows Day.
And we will strike number 3 also from the agenda, as that was last meeting. So with that, I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda with striking number 3 and adding in at the beginning of business items the proclamation declaring June 23rd as International Widows Day.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. That'll take public comments. If there's anyone who would like to discuss anything not on the agenda, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll close public comments and move to consent. Is there anything on the consent agenda that needs to be pulled for further discussion? Hearing none, I'll look for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a
Second.
second? Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. And with that, we will move to business items with the added agenda item of the proclamation declaring June 23rd as International Widows Day. So with that, International Widows Day is a global awareness day that takes place annually on June 23rd. The day was launched by the United Nations in 2010 to raise awareness of the needs and plights of widows and their families globally, nationally, and locally in order to give them a voice to be heard, seen, understood, and served. And whereas there are currently nearly 14 million widows in the United States, 258 million widows globally, and 585 million children who are directly affected by the loss of a father. And whereas consequently the Modern Widows Club, an Orlando-founded national nonprofit, was founded in 2011 and leads the United States in advocacy, mentoring, and leadership for the women in widowhood. And whereas the chapter of the Modern Widows Club was established in February 2020 and serves to empower women in widowhood within the greater Mayor area, and provide them with the tools to learn to lean into life, build resilience, and make positive differences in their own lives and those of others in their community. And whereas supportive communities are able to greatly assist and empower widows and their families to become thriving and vital members of society through understanding the crucial needs in widows' lives and aiding in the development of services, programs, outreach, and community involvement from all those within our city, state, and nation to ensure widows and their families become thriving and vital members of society at large. And whereas it is fitting and proper that the City of Mayor recognizes the Minneapolis West Modern Widows Club and honors June 23rd, 2024 as International Widows Day. So with that, I'll look for a motion to approve the proclamation declaring June 23rd as International Widow Day.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. So with that, passed and adopted by the City Council and the City Mayor on this 10th day of June, 2024. So with that, thank you for coming. If either of you want to come up and say a few things, feel free.
I just want to say thank you again for your ongoing support. I'm sure you're not the only widow in town.
Yep.
It's probably the most well-known name, and we appreciate the support and helping us in what we're doing through a very fantastic organization.
Right, absolutely is. No,
And if they had questions, I brought them in to answer.
Yeah,
anything
no,
more
I'm-
technical.
very proud to pass this every year. I think it's great. So I think you guys do a great job. The organization is great. It helps, obviously, by the numbers that we see, do a great job. So thank you. Any questions, comments? Perfect.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, sorry for the little glitch, but we got there.
Send
Oh.
this so they can take it.
Sorry. Sure.
You want everyone or just
All
you?
council. I think all council is appropriate for this.
Thank you. Perfect. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for coming down. All right, with that, then we will move to consider approval of change order to water tower painting repair work.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank Dave Martini for coming out to assist on this item. Get right down to it is, we had an original scope of work that was associated with the project up on the water tower. So going back to it, we had the water tower painted in 22, I believe it was. The work was what we thought was completed, and then we had an area of the tower that started to delaminate. On there, we had reached out to the original company, but for a myriad of reasons, they were found to be not reliable to come back and perform the repair work. And at this stage, we wouldn't necessarily really want them to. So we decided to get quotes to have a different company come in and perform the repair work. And the original scope of work was approved by City Council for the cost of $12,300. When the crews got up there and they got their rigging equipment in order and they started working on it, they started blasting it, scraping it away, they found that the lamination area was larger than expected. And so at that point, city staff got together and we evaluated and we gave the verbal go-ahead since the crews were already up there working on it. And this was work that unfortunately has to happen regardless. Rather than having them stop, potentially lose a week and a half of work on the whole thing, just gave them the verbal go-ahead, bringing this to council for later consideration on it. They got us a quote to perform the additional work, which came to a base amount of $6,850, and that is for the remainder of the paint delamination. However, we did have some stenciling work that needed to also occur since the delam area went into there. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Dave Martini to talk a little bit more about that delamination on the stencil.
Yeah, when they got up there and, the area just kept getting larger and they kept chasing it, essentially what happened is the existing logo got to the point where they weren't going to be able to just trace it anymore. We had to get a new stencil to do that. When they got the stencil, it didn't lay perfectly over the old logo, so they ended up basically having to paint the whole side of the tower and put in a new logo in its entirety up there. So that's the additional work in addition to what we had already been talking about. We did have a meeting, Public Works meeting last week, just to chat through where we were at that time that we set up the meeting. I was getting uncomfortable that we're really diligently. So at this point, the work's done. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but it's cleaned and painted, and the new logo is up there now, and that should be the end of the work. So we would recommend that you approve the additional work that was required to get this completed. The one thing I would add that, as Nick had alluded to, is the original contractor wouldn't say they were unresponsive. There was correspondence with them to try to get this resolved with them. but ultimately getting them out there to do the corrective work wasn't happening. So the other recommendation would be that at least that this cost be sent to them, and with the expectation that they're going to pay for this work that ultimately should have been completed by them as warranty work. Where that goes based on kind of the history of it, it remains to be seen, but we should be at least making that request of them.
Agreed. So before us, we have the change order, the singular change order here at 6850. And then as Dave brought to me tonight, for the stenciling work and the redoing of the logo, that was not included in this, as they thought this was just the repaint. The additional stenciling and logo work came to $2,100. So total amount was, I believe it was 21,000.
250.
So the base amount of 12,300 plus the 6,850 plus the 2,100.
You want to do it all tonight?
Yes, please.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Martini or our city administrator?
And you said this is finished?
It's complete now, yes.
Okay. They
Not-
finished today?
Yep.
I was like, I saw somebody out there on Saturday.
Yep.
That's why I was like,
No, it's, yeah, they're working this weekend. It is now complete.
And you're trying to get the whole 21,000 from the first company, like at
That
least
would-
send it to them?
That would be the recommendation, is
Yeah.
that from our position, that's their obligation.
We'll certainly be sending them all these invoices.
Yeah.
for it. Yep.
Correct.
Any other questions? So with that, I'll look for a motion to approve the two change orders for Hartung for the repainting and the logos. So the repainting for $6,850, and then for the logo and stenciling, an additional $2,100.
Motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I appreciate you guys keeping moving on that. I think that was the right thing to do. I know we talked about it in Public Works. Like you said, Nick, a little more than your 5,000, but in this instance, to remove everything down, get everything back up, it's going to cost us this again to stabilize everything. So I think we did the right thing here.
Yeah, to have them wait for
Yeah. So I
us.
think it was a good decision to do that. So I appreciate it from both you guys working diligently on that, along with Kyle for managing. And a lot of that, why to keep going also is the water tower's not down. They want to get it back filled up again where they could and keep that going. So there was a lot more that went into it than just some of that. So if you could thank Kyle and Public Works for
Yeah.
that too, we appreciate that.
I want to thank Kyle and Public Works. They did a good job balancing the levels of the water tower to make sure we maintain pressure. It was tricky on their end, but they got it done.
Yep. Great job all around. So I do appreciate that. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Post same sign. Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. And with that, we'll move to consider approval of joint power agreement with Carver County for emergency services data access talk group.
Thank you, Mayor. So this has been something that the cities of Carver County have been working with the sheriff's office now for, I think, almost a year at this point. I was invited to be part of the group. Just with everything going on, I wasn't able to attend a lot of the meetings, but several of the cities did attend to work on this agreement. And this is the final product that came forth after the cities negotiated with the sheriff's office. And what this does is the sheriff's office is establishing an encrypted talk group on the emergency services radio channels. And this establishes the base rules and guidelines that have to go forward if a city does want to participate in that talk group. It's not required, but if we want to, it spells out what we need to do, the operational procedures and the training that's in place, as well as the documentation to the county of who's going to have access, which radios, so that they can program those as well. So looking at this would be the final agreement. My understanding is the city of Carver has already passed this, and nearly all of the other cities have this on their city council agendas this week for approvals. So with that, I would recommend approval, and then I'll be working with Andy to make sure we get what's needed in place to participate. That's what he'd like to do.
Perfect. Any questions for Nick? I'll look for a motion to enter into agreement for the enter into a joint powers agreement for data access with Carver County.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Post same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. And with that, we'll move to consider approval to appoint Eric Strand to the Fire Department Medical Lieutenant position.
Thank you, Mayor. The previous medical lieutenant moved out of the area, and which necessitated us to go through the interview process because we had multiple applicants for the interim. So he will be serving through the end of the year. And then when appointments come back up, we'll restart that process. We had 2 applicants that interviewed, and the recommendation coming up from the Fire Department Committee on this was to appoint Eric Strand to the position of medical lieutenant.
Wonderful. Any questions? So with that, I'll look for a motion to approve the appointment of Eric Strand to the Fire Department Medical Lieutenant position.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Oh, guy on the buzzer.
Yeah, right. Any further discussion?
No.
So I'd just like to congratulate Eric. Like Nick, when he mentioned he had applied for this position. It sounds like he's really done some extra effort to get there, and
Mhm.
I think he'll jump right in and fill the position as expected. So I want to thank him for that. So with that, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. With that, we'll move to council reports. Councilmember Wagner, anything to report on?
I have nothing.
Councilmember Fausch, anything to report on?
I have nothing.
Councilmember McNeely.
Nope.
And we had a Public Works meeting. We talked about most of it with the fire or the water tower. We did meet to start finalizing our 2024 street seal coating project for the year. So more of that will be coming soon. We're just waiting. We made a few little changes. So we're waiting for some new quotes from the vendor to complete it. So, and I think that's all I had. Me and Nick did attend the visitation for Stan Helt over the week. Not only a firefighter, had businesses in town. Between him and his wife, they're both been doing DNR firearm safety training for 50 years, 60 years now, I think Stan done. So he's just been a big part of the community. So the Veterans Memorial, the Carver County Veterans Memorial was a lot came from him, his vision or his dream that turned into a vision that turned into it. And there were a lot of meetings, if it wasn't the Rail Association or Carver County or here. And I had the benefit of being on council since day one when they approached us. So it was great to see the entire thing come. He's just put a lot into it. I've talked to some of the other committee members, and they're all at, we're going to have to step it up a little bit to fill those shoes. So they're getting prepared for that. So, and we'll thank Charlie, his son, is on the committee also, who's will be taking over some of those responsibilities too for Stan. So big loss to the community. So with that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.
Thanks for letting me have that one.
Yeah.
Everyone held back. All right, with that, we'll jump right into the workshop for June 10th.
Thank you, Mayor. We can actually skip over number 2. I found a provision at the end of the animal ordinance that we'll clean it up at a later date, but at the end of our animal regulatory ordinance, there is a provision in there that adopts the county code by reference. It was at the very end of the code, not in a place I was expecting it to be regarding dangerous animals. But on the topic of this, we recently had a dog bite incident in town. It was not a major one, thankfully, but it was a minor one. And we ran into a situation where our city code, before I saw the provision adopting the county code, that the owner of the animal would have to either put the dog or the offending biting animal in the city pound, which does not exist, or they would have to have it placed in a veterinary clinic of the owner's choosing for the length of the quarantine period, which the owner couldn't find one that would take an animal. I can attest to this over my 14-year history. It seems like Vets over time, fewer and fewer are taking these types of animals in. The risk to the rest of the animals, if they don't have their proper vaccination records, it's too great. So many vets are switching away from it, and that's been my experience over time. So that all aligns with what I saw. The county's procedures, on the other hand, what they do is they allow for in-house quarantine. The dog may be let out to do its business, but then it has to come immediately back in. It cannot be let around to roam. It's kept indoors for that 10-day period. It cannot interact with other dogs. And then the animal control officer for Carver County will come out after the 10-day period and do the check on the animal to make sure it's not showing signs of rabies. And if it's not, then it will get cleared. And then that's the end-up process. It comes to the final conclusion is the same, but it's two different processes. So we ended up defaulting to the Carver County code provisions, which the sheriff enforces. So the idea of tonight, until I found the code today, actually, with the reference, was to look at amending our animal ordinance to align with the Carver County's code, so that in the future it'll be a cleaner process. But since I found the code that that adopts it by reference, we do have a little bit of conflict in there, since our code says you have to city pound or put it at a vet clinic. But then by reference, we adopt the county's code that says, well, you can in-home quarantine. So we'll just treat it as either or.
Are we going to leave it as is then, or are you going to take a deeper dive and see if there's any tweaking and perhaps bring it back, or are you good?
Probably bring it back at a much future date.
Okay.
But since I found it, that satisfies my concerns for now.
Yep.
I was looking at cleaning that up, given we had the incident. So that's the short version of number 2. Number 3, the state legislature, as you recall, we had the Earn Sick and Safe Time, which went into effect for this year. During this legislative session, the legislature heard bills from the League of Minnesota Cities, one in particular which supported an exemption for volunteer and paid on-call firefighters, amongst some other stuff, but that's what affects us, from ESST. And that was something that should have been put in place from the word go. Some of the ambulance provisions also were included on that, but since we don't have that, that was put into effect. So for discussion on tonight's meeting, it's amending our policy on ESST. Essentially, there is some minor language changes to singular quite a bit under the qualifying employees. Paid on-call firefighters, adding a not eligible from eligible to not eligible to clean that up, just in case there's any questions in the future. There was language in here which was deleted for paid on-call firefighters for ESST. So it said, for paid on-call firefighters, ESST shall utilize the front-loading no payout option. This provides 80 hours of ESST at the beginning of the year for use. And then it says, see the specific provisions for additional details. That's deleted out. And then when we go down, after these general provisions is where this language was at. That said, paid on-call firefighter specific provisions, ESST is intended to be used for planned absences. Given the unknowable nature of fire and medical calls, ESST may only be used for meetings, trainings, and other similar types of functions. ESST may not be used for fire or medical calls. ESST applies towards meeting pay only. Firefighters are required to make up mandatory trainings and other missed meetings in order to keep necessary certifications and attendance percentages. So that language would all get deleted out. We do keep it for our part-time, which is Rick Becker out at the compost site. ESST still applies, but we don't have to make any changes for that because the rest of the policy does hold. So that would be the provisions. Recommendation for moving forward is that I would have this policy sunset at the end of the year. We've already front-loaded the 80 hours. We have the policy in place. The legislature has enacted the language. Rather than trying to undo all the 80 hours and do that, we'll just wait to the end of the year, ride it out, and then the policy would sunset. So that would be the recommendation I would bring to the next city council meeting, along with the updated policy.
Pretty straightforward.
Yep.
Yeah. Looks good. Any other comments? All right. Anything more on that then?
Nope,
No?
nothing more on that.
Pretty straightforward. Thank you.
Yep.
So that we will move into closed session to consider strategies for labor negotiations, including negotiation strategies, development, or discussion of labor negotiation proposal authorized by Minnesota State Statute 13D.03.
Before I get a motion on that, just for the audience that may be attending, this is the last item on our workshop agenda. There will be nothing else afterward.
Right, perfect, thank you. So with that, I'll look for motion to enter into closed session.
Motion.
Second.
Motion a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Post same sign. Motion carries 4-0. We will enter into closed session. Thank you.